Prediction 2024 for England. Freedom of speech and thought matters, especially when it comes to speech and thought with which we disagree. As soon as the majority decides to destroy people for practicing thoughts they don't like, the crime of thought becomes a reality. Ben Shapiro, 2023 was a disastrous year for the UK economy. Rishi Sunak, who replaced Boris Johnson, but ultimately appeared to be short on substance with his choices, was making the daily lives of Britons more difficult. 2024 doesn't leave much room for things to be better. The opposite would be true. First of all, the annual MC meets the natal ascendant Vulcanus interlude, and that speaks of heavy enforcement, taxation, fine, penalty in the form of a fine. England will feel that it cannot get along, but will feel that others are looking after their survival, that is, doing what the Brits themselves have done over time. Nevertheless, the participation of the ascendant Vulcanus axis speaks of a blitzkrieg, the strike of lightning. By taking part in battles hand to hand, we achieve vital blows to the enemy, confirming what the former Prime Minister of Greece, Eleftherios Venizelos, said: "In all wars, England wins a battle, the last one." In the midst of all this, British egoism is a driving force, and it will try to put all its efforts to succeed and break the deadlock. England will show their opponents such a destructive fury that they will want to wipe whole groups of people off the map. Jupiter Admetos participation speaks of the urgent need to support the people and spend extremely money. Many public and government employees will be asked to cancel permits and day-offs, while there will be a lot of property damage. England will implement pioneering ideas, but the ascendant Neptune midpoint involvement speaks of false actions, and false images make a group of people suffer. Some individuals, through naivety, their own, or deliberate deceit of others, eventually lose something of their possessions. Annual Ascendant talks about transforming social life through changes in social conditions. The British government will try through discussions with priests and preachers to use them so that the people remain as calm as possible. There will be drastic changes in the way and type of food. Ni-Eddy axis involvement signals a change of job, position, or even social or economic status. Annual Chronos meets natal midpoint Mercury-Mars indicates governmental orders that play on the edge of autocracy. It is also worth noting that due to the involvement of the Uranus-Poseidon midpoint, there will be an attempt at enlightenment, asterisk propaganda, essentially. At the same time, governmental and non-governmental agencies will control actions and behaviors. If we also take into account the Pluto-Cupido axis, then it is more than certain that the government will try to rebuild the state through a new system of governance of the country. The higher-ups, because of the ascendant Zeus axis, will demand action and, in many cases, criminal response to opposition. In the midst of all this, and while the government will want to display a profile of a strong presence, there will be ferment for political unrest. Essentially, those who want to take power into their own hands will be nothing more than personalities with a large shadow that dazzles others. The state authorities, to identify people who are out of monitoring, will collaborate with criminal groups of organized crime. Saturn Admetos involvement speaks of government personalities in a very difficult position and the loss of a significant advantage. Annual Cupido and Pluto tell of a meeting that fails, and a murder that shocks during what we might call the festive season. Great care will be needed because there will be a reduction in government benefits, as the state treasury is in a miserable state. Many groups of people will be oppressed or even persecuted, and there will be great losses. For those seeking happiness, this will only come when certain protocols are followed. For the year 2024, England will try to hide the situation by giving the impression that everything is under control. With the involvement of the MC Neptune midpoint, there will be various swaps in stocks and bonds in an attempt to restore England's prestige. The year has Mars, Jupiter and Hades. The Zeus-Vulcanus axis involvement speaks of strong efforts under difficult circumstances and ugly conditions, dirt and turmoil, intense hatred and resentment, activity-related machinery, tools, and war industry. England will attempt to play as well as she can with whatever chances she has. But the URAD axis unfortunately indicates great and sudden need, while many state secrets will leak out. Terror and repression. Some changes in conditions, pay, or hours in work matters will create huge reactions. If we take Uranus-Zeus involvement into account, then things are difficult, since it speaks of a disaster due to the forces of nature, earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, etc. In the royal family, we may have the arrival of a new member, new child. Many efforts by volunteer groups, food banks, and donations may not be enough in the end. Unfortunately, Britain's reputation will take a big hit. The feeling I get is that we will have a major deterioration. Incidents of hatred and violence, religiously or politically motivated, will occur across the length and breadth of Britain. The involvement of the MC Pluto suggests from bad to worse. A career, a reputation, a life in freefall. For other groups or professions, there will be preferential treatment, and this will raise a storm of opposition. The coup de grâce is given by the participation of the Moon-Saturn axis, which speaks of violence that brings sorrow. The hours after work, the weakened people. Let us not forget that the year begins with Saturn soar Neptune, and that shows us fraud, serious illness, and robberies. The midpoint Hades Zeus indicates unhelpful enmity, hatred, and enmity for quite some time, losses and destruction through fire, arson, or war. The problem may get out of control as the Cupido-Zeus axis involvement indicates bankruptcies and secret military organizations, disarmed military units. Parts of an army were forced into inactivity, disbanded armies. A disturbing factor in an organization, losses of a company, a union, or a military organization. New doctrine in warfare. In general, they must understand in England that things are not and will not go as they think and calculate. The implication of midpoint Sun-Zeus axis of leadership with Neptune and Saturn respectively, and talking about a leader great liar, a leader black fraud, leading into unexplored realms, literally or metaphorically. England will try to support the elderly. As things stand, the problem is not one of economic hardship, as everyone will have such issues more or less, but of dealing with them. Annual moon indicates the attempt to support the image of people who have prestige and financial comfort. Some women with fresh ideas and vision will want to instill a vision in the world. Problems with water and downpours and flooding, much of the people will feel desperate. Annual Mercury and Zeus talks about revolutions and explosions of cars, gas, etc. Violence and filthy warfare aimed well, against someone in particular or directed. A void born of hate, the beginning of a great destructive conflagration. Orders were given with ferocity on the battlefield. The television networks may show images that will be a disgrace to the policies of the British MPs. the Cupido Kronos will spearhead a new multinational military task force. Society will be under pressure. Through military equipment, it will correct its economic image. Actions dictated with great haste, tasks that require a great speed. The person who acts quickly other, who is forced, and make a quick decision. News that creates sudden excitement, something that need to be decided quickly. It's a year where there will be many mergers of companies. The people will suffer from individuals who forcefully get what they want. The Jupiter-Hades involvement speaks of getting involved in a financial adventure with others, associating with people who have hard luck. Annual Uranus equals Poseidon, and that speaks of propaganda, while many staff plans will be made. The English do not see the error of their flight from Europe. England was too big to be under the command of petty and American-led Germany. Anyway, even those who stayed in Europe are probably regretting it. Annual Admetos talks about sabotage, debris, and general repression. England is being asked to go against all odds to remain a functioning country. The involvement of the vernal point, Kronos midpoint, indicates the collapse of government at all levels. Nevertheless, it is slowly laying the groundwork for a stabilization of some things that will bring about an improvement in conditions after 2-3 years. The UK, under the Poseidon equivalent of Zeus, looks set to adopt a special document certificate that will help citizens to live, while the state will put on training courses so that many residents can acquire new skills. A summary: England in 2024 will have a huge fight for its survival. It may create enough imaginary enemies to subdue the crowd. Problems with benefits and the sufficiency of goods and money will create many problems. England will be at the mercy of investors, irreligionists, and the fury of nature